The sky above the Arctic wasteland burned with fractured light, a trembling aurora that veiled the stars. Beneath it, Sergeant Elias Kane moved through the ruins of what had once been an outpost, a cluster of steel bones half buried under ice and ash. His breath came in steady, visible pulses, each exhale marking the rhythm of survival. The rifle slung against his shoulder gleamed faintly beneath the pale light, its barrel etched with old scars. He walked alone, though he was not unaccompanied. Silence itself had become his only comrade. Kane had been many things in his life: a soldier, a ghost, a name whispered in camps as both warning and legend. But now he was simply a sniper holding the last ridge between Earth and extinction. The aliens had come 6 months ago, not as invaders in ships of fire, but as conquerors with purpose. They called themselves the Zarkath warlords, hunters who saw humanity not as an enemy, but as prey. They descended upon the northern hemisphere first, choosing the cold as their domain, thriving where men froze. Humanity's armies had fractured under the assault. Now, only scattered survivors remained, cells of resistance clinging to the planet's bones. Kane adjusted the dial on his visor, scanning the horizon for movement. The landscape stretched in endless white, but he knew better than to trust stillness. The Zarkath had learned to mimic it. He crouched near the remains of a comm tower, its antenna twisted toward the sky like a finger accusing the heavens. Static whispered faintly in his ear. Somewhere beyond the frozen ridges, a signal pulsed, coded human frequency, faint but deliberate. He checked his wrist display. The coordinates matched the last known location of Recon Unit Echo 7. He hadn't heard from them in 4 days. He knelt beside a cracked console, brushed away a thin layer of frost, and activated the transmitter. The screen flickered, bleeding green light. Echo 7, this is Ghostline, he said, his voice low but firm. If you're out there, respond. Only static answered. He tried again. Echo 7 confirmed status. Silence stretched, heavy, absolute. Then, faintly, a sound, a breath, a whisper distorted by distance. He leaned closer. Kane. The voice was weak, broken by interference. They're watching. Don't. The transmission cut abruptly. Kane stared at the screen, the snow hissing softly around him. He didn't need the rest of the message. He already knew what it meant. Echo 7 was gone, and something had taken their place. He rose slowly, slinging the rifle back over his shoulder. His pulse steadied. The Zarkath hunted with patience. They studied behavior, adapted with each kill. The fact that they'd mimicked a human distress call meant they'd learned more than expected. Still, Kane couldn't ignore the signal. There might be one survivor. One was enough. He moved north, guided by instinct more than instruments. The wind thickened, carrying with it a metallic tang, the scent of plasma burns and melted alloy. The first body he found was half frozen, armor split cleanly down the center. A human. The second was not. Its body was too large, limbs jointed wrong, skin like polished obsidian reflecting the weak light. Its face, or what passed for one, was expressionless, its eyes dull gold, unblinking. Kane knelt beside it, examining the weapon clutched in its claws. A plasma carbine, freshly discharged. He traced the entry wound through its chest, precise, controlled, a single shot through the heart. A sniper shot. So Echo 7 had fought back, and whoever had taken the kill shot had been good. Very good. Kane felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in months. Curiosity. He rose again, eyes sweeping the ridge ahead. Tracks led deeper into the snowfield. One set human, the other's alien. He followed the human trail, every step quiet and deliberate. The landscape changed as he ascended the ridge. The snow thinned, revealing patches of black ice that shimmered under the aurora's pulse. A faint hum trembled beneath his boots, a vibration too regular to be natural. He crouched, pressing a gloved hand to the ground. Machinery. Active. He turned his visor to thermal mode, and there it was. Heat signatures clustered ahead, faint but alive. A Zarkath hunting camp. He crept forward, movements fluid, rifle ready. The camp lay nestled between shards of rock and ice, their equipment glowing faintly with alien energy. 5 figures moved within, 4 hunters and 1 bound human figure on its knees. Even through the frost and distance, Kane recognized the posture of military discipline fighting exhaustion. The prisoner was alive. Kane steadied his rifle, sighted through the scope. The nearest alien stood beside the prisoner, examining something on its wrist display. Kane adjusted his breathing, 4 seconds in, 2 seconds out, and fired. The round sliced through the storm, struck the alien cleanly through the skull, and dropped it before it could fall. The others reacted instantly, plasma bolts arcing through the air, painting the snow with violet light. Kane shifted positions, rolling behind a mound of ice, chambering another round. He fired twice more. 2 more aliens fell. The last one charged toward his position, roaring, claws extended. Kane waited until it breached 20 meters, then triggered the small mine he'd placed moments earlier. The explosion was brief but brutal, scattering shards of ice and armor across the field. When the smoke cleared, silence reclaimed the ridge. He stood slowly, scanning for movement. None. The prisoner remained motionless, still bound. Kane descended carefully, rifle raised. As he approached, the figure lifted their head slightly. A woman's face emerged from beneath a cracked helmet, pale, bloodied, but alive. Her eyes met his, sharp and alert despite the exhaustion. "Sergeant Kane," she rasped, voice dry. "Didn't think the legends were real." Kane crouched beside her, cutting the restraints with his knife. "Legends die easier than soldiers," he said quietly. "What happened to your unit?" "Ambushed," she replied. "They knew we were coming. Every step, every route. Like they could hear us thinking." She looked up at the alien corpses scattered across the ice. "They wanted bait. Me." Kane glanced at the ridge above. The aurora shimmered faintly, reflected in her eyes. Then they got more than they bargained for. He helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as they moved back toward cover. "What's your name, Lieutenant?" "Rhea Voss," she said, steadying herself. "Echo 7's last." Kane nodded once. "Not anymore." They reached a hollow in the ridge, where the storm offered brief shelter. Kane scanned the horizon again, his visor detecting faint energy signatures farther north. Too faint to confirm, but too deliberate to ignore. He adjusted the settings, frowning. "They're regrouping." Rhea sat against the ice, eyes following his movements. "You fought them before," she said. It wasn't a question. He didn't look at her. "Too many times." "Then tell me something," she said softly. "What do they want with us?" Kane's gaze stayed on the horizon. The faint light of the aurora danced across his visor, reflecting in his eyes like fire behind glass. "They hunt," he said. "Not for territory, not for conquest. For sport. Every planet they touch becomes a proving ground." Rhea shivered, pulling her damaged coat tighter. "And Earth's next." He turned to face her, voice quiet but certain. "No, Earth is the one that fights back." For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind howled across the ridge, scattering fine dusts of snow between them. Rhea's breathing slowed, her eyes closing briefly. Kane looked once more toward the north, where faint shadows moved through the storm. The hunt was far from over. He checked his rifle, chambered a fresh round, and rose. "Get some rest, Lieutenant," he said. "Tomorrow we hunt them." Rhea opened her eyes, gaze hardening. "Side by side, then." "Until the last shot," he replied. The aurora flared brighter above them, bleeding color across the frozen world. Beneath its light, 2 human figures stood amid the ruins of extinction, silent but unbroken, while far beyond the ridge, unseen eyes watched from the storm, marking their next move. The snow had become heavier, falling in dense spirals that blurred the horizon and muted every sound. Kane adjusted the scope of his rifle, watching the 5 remaining hunters fan out through the storm. They moved with precision, each step measured, every movement silent. He had fought soldiers before, assassins and mercenaries, but these creatures were different. They hunted like a collective instinct, a single thought split across multiple bodies. The discipline was almost beautiful. Almost. He dragged his gloved hand through the snow, clearing a small circle in front of him, and began assembling a decoy emitter. It was an old trick, a compact heat projector wired to mimic a human body's thermal signature. Primitive compared to alien technology, but the Zarkath relied too much on their sensors. He placed the emitter 20 meters from his real position and powered it on. Through the scope, a ghostly human form shimmered into existence, a perfect lure. Kane waited, motionless. His heartbeat was a steady metronome. The aliens were cautious now, sweeping the terrain with shifting lenses. He could see their armor adjusting to the cold, light rippling across the plates as the camouflage recalibrated. They moved like predators in an ocean of white, invisible except for faint distortions in the snow. One of them broke formation, creeping toward the false heat source. The others covered its approach, spreading their arcs wider. Kane exhaled slowly, calculating angles. The target reached the decoy, crouched, and extended a clawed hand toward it. That was his window. His finger tightened against the trigger with the precision of a surgeon. The rifle whispered again. The alien's head snapped backward, fragments of armor scattering in the snow. The body fell without a sound. Kane immediately shifted positions, rolling behind an icy ledge, leaving no visible trace. The entire engagement had lasted less than 5 seconds. He crawled through a shallow trench, careful to keep his movements below the ridgeline. His breath fogged inside the mask, but he resisted the urge to wipe it away. Every motion had to serve a purpose. Behind him, he could hear the faint hum of alien scanners activating, their pulses distorting the air. They were triangulating, but he was already gone. He climbed to higher ground, settling beneath a wind-carved rock formation that offered a narrow vantage of the valley below. A plasma blast tore through the snow near his last position. Another followed, a burst of blue light that melted ice into steam. The aliens were retaliating blindly, firing at shadows. Kane adjusted his scope again, watching their movements through the haze. They were panicking, their perfect formation beginning to fray under pressure. He had seen it 100 times before. Disciplined killers unraveling when faced with an enemy they couldn't see or predict. Humans had written entire wars on that principle. He opened a small compartment on his wrist console and pulled a capsule of glucose gel, biting into it to steady his focus. The cold had begun to seep through his armor, gnawing at muscle and bone. He ignored it. Pain was temporary. Survival wasn't. He scanned for new angles, counting the glowing figures through the snow. For remain now. A faint vibration rippled through the ice beneath him. Movement, fast, deliberate. He shifted the rifle a few degrees just as something burst from beneath the surface. The alien lunged upward, claws slashing through the air, its cloak sparking from the strain of movement. Kane rolled aside, narrowly avoiding the strike. The creature's blade grazed his shoulder plate, cutting through fabric and skin. He swung the rifle like a club, smashing the buttstock into the alien's jaw. The sound was like shattering glass. They struggled briefly, two predators in the storm. Kane reached for the sidearm, holstered on his thigh, and fired twice. The rounds tore through the creature's chest, sending it reeling backward. He didn't wait to confirm the kill. Instead, he pushed off the ground, breathing hard, blood warming his left arm. He checked the wound, superficial but messy. He reloaded the rifle, his hands steady despite the pain. 3 left, he muttered. The remaining hunters had gone silent. He could no longer track them visually. Their cloaks had fully re-engaged. He knew what that meant. They were regrouping, planning a coordinated strike. The Zarkath didn't fight alone. They adapted collectively. Each death was information shared among the survivors. They were learning him, reading his tactics like a book written in blood. Kane crouched low and started moving south toward a denser cluster of ice formations. The storm had thickened into near whiteout conditions, an advantage he could exploit. His thermal readings flickered uselessly. Everything was cold. He switched to motion detection, watching faint blips of movement on his visor's display. 2 signatures, one close, one distant. They were circling again. He paused, analyzing the terrain, mind racing through contingencies. He placed 2 proximity charges behind him, subtle enough to be overlooked, but powerful enough to collapse the ridge if triggered. Then he settled into a new sniping position, half buried in snow. He slowed his breathing, aligning scope and crosshairs with the faint motion signature ahead. He could feel the wind shifting, an instinct older than any machine. The nearest alien appeared first, barely a silhouette against the storm. Kane squeezed the trigger. The shot struck center mass, and the figure vanished in an explosion of blue vapor. At the same instant, the second alien's shot flared past him, a plasma bolt scorching the ground inches from his face. The retaliatory blast was fast, too fast. Kane rolled behind cover, heart hammering now, pulse loud in his ears. The ground shook as one of his proximity mines detonated. A cascade of ice collapsed down the ridge, burying something large beneath tons of snow. When the noise faded, only the wind remained. He checked the sensors again. 2 signals left. The odds were shifting, but the danger hadn't lessened. He felt the ache in his shoulder deepen, the cold biting sharper around the wound. He adjusted his stance, gritting his teeth. His mind drifted unbidden to faces long gone, commanders who had once called him a ghost, a weapon shaped by necessity. They were all gone now. All that remained was him. The last whisper of a war humanity had almost lost. He scanned the horizon once more, but the sensors were blank. No movement, no heat. The silence felt wrong, too perfect, too measured. He knew a trap when he saw one. The Zarkath were trying to force him into motion, to make him expose himself. He resisted the urge. Patience was his strongest weapon. He stayed still for what felt like an hour, his breathing steady, his focus unbroken. Then he saw it, a faint flicker of distortion, no more than a ripple in the falling snow. He adjusted the scope and waited for the pattern to repeat. It did. He fired. The alien dropped, its cloak failing mid-fall, body tumbling into a heap. Blue light leaked from its wounds, staining the snow. Kane reloaded again, scanning for the last one. Nothing. The valley was still. He allowed himself one long breath, the kind soldiers take when they realize they've survived another round. But the calm didn't last. A soft clicking echoed through the storm, closer than it should have been. He turned sharply, rifle raised, but there was only snow. Then he saw the faintest outline, a ripple no more than a meter away. The last hunter was almost upon him. Kane fired point blank. The impact hurled the creature backward, its blood sizzling against the frozen ground. Silence reclaimed the valley. He lowered his weapon, breathing heavy but steady. Snowflakes gathered on his gloves, melting against the heat of his pulse. He looked toward the ridgeline, the storm still raging. 2 left when I started, he murmured, voice rough with exhaustion. None now. He wiped the blood from his shoulder and began to reload. The hunt was far from over. Somewhere beyond the blizzard, the true commander was waiting. Kane could feel it, the eyes of something older, more dangerous, watching him through the storm. He adjusted his rifle, whispering to himself, "Your move." The storm had grown darker, as if the sky itself conspired to erase everything beneath it. The snow no longer fell, it devoured. Kane crouched behind a ridge of fractured ice, his rifle cradled against his chest, every movement deliberate. The wind howled like a living thing, but his mind was quiet, sharpened to a single purpose. Somewhere beyond the white abyss, 2 of the Zarkath hunters remained, and one of them was their leader. The pattern of movement had changed, too calculated now to be instinct. They had stopped chasing him. They were waiting. He adjusted the dial on his visor, shifting through spectral modes until faint distortions appeared, a trail of heat residue, almost invisible, leading north toward the glacier field. Bait. He recognized the tactic instantly. They wanted him to follow, to move into open ground where their advantage returned. The logical choice was to stay hidden, to wait them out. But logic didn't kill enemies. Action did. Kane checked his rifle's chamber, running fingers along the metal, as if reaffirming a pact. He had 1 explosive round left, a relic from the First War, designed to pierce even Zarkath command armor. He thumbed it into place, the sound soft but satisfying. Then he began to move. The terrain changed as he advanced. The snow thinned, giving way to jagged ice formations and frozen crevasses that glowed faintly from bioluminescent crystals trapped within. The light painted the storm in eerie hues of blue and violet, illuminating the alien architecture beneath the glacier. Kane's breath misted before him, rhythmic, controlled. The storm's howl was softer here, muffled by the ice walls. It almost felt sacred, like trespassing in a cathedral of frost. Then he heard it, a low resonance, too deep to be wind. He froze, listening. The sound came again, pulsing through the ground like a heartbeat. The Zarkath were communicating, not with words but through vibrations carried in the ice. He could feel it beneath his boots, subtle tremors that mapped their coordination. The realization chilled him more than the cold ever could. They were not just hunters. They were a network, every move connected, every death absorbed in a shared memory. Killing them had only taught the survivors how to fight him better. He continued forward, slower now. Every instinct screamed that he was walking into a trap, but he needed to draw the leader out. The glacier opened into a wide basin filled with mist. He crouched low, scanning through his scope. Nothing but haze and shifting light. He reached for his motion sensor, placing it on the ice beside him. The screen flickered, one blip, then two, closing from opposite directions. Kane steadied his breathing, feeling the weight of the rifle anchor him. The first shadow emerged to his right, faint but tangible. He turned, ready to fire, when another distortion appeared directly ahead. They were coordinating again, flanking him perfectly. He fired at the nearest form. The bullet tore through a blur of movement, and the snow erupted in a plume of vapor. But before he could adjust, a plasma bolt hissed past his ear, melting a streak through his hood. He rolled to the side, firing twice in quick succession. The first shot missed. The second hit something solid. A scream, alien, guttural, too close. He slid behind an ice pillar, heart hammering now, the pain in his shoulder pulsing with every beat. He pressed a gloved hand against the wound. The blood had frozen into a crusted layer, but the heat of battle had kept him moving. The surviving aliens circled the other side of the pillar, silent as smoke. Kane could see faint blue light reflecting off the ice, a shimmer from its armor. He reached for the combat knife strapped to his thigh and pressed his back against the pillar, waiting. The creature struck first, lunging from a mist within human speed. Kane turned into the motion, the knife flashing upward. The blade met resistance, cutting through armor plates into flesh. The alien roared, claws raking across his chest, knocking him backward. Pain exploded through his ribs, but he didn't let go of the knife. He twisted it deeper, feeling the vibration as bone split. The creature collapsed, dragging him down into the snow. Kane rolled free, panting, every muscle screaming. The alien twitched once, then stilled. He knelt beside it, studying the body. The armor was patterned differently, denser, reinforced. This one hadn't been just a hunter. It was a lieutenant. That meant the last one, the leader, was close. Kane wiped the blood from his blade and retrieved his rifle. He could sense eyes on him, something cold and ancient watching from the mist. He had crossed into the leader's domain. A voice crackled through his comms, low and distorted, not human. Ghost line. It hissed in broken English, the words stretched through static. You kill my kin. You bleed our honor. Kane froze, the sound crawling through his nerves. He hadn't expected communication. He raised his rifle toward the source of the voice, scanning through the mist. You talk now, he said quietly. Guess evolution's catching up. The reply came like a growl. You are prey, human, small, fragile, yet you hide in snow and strike from dark. I see why they fear you. Kane smirked beneath his mask. Fear's efficient. Saves me bullets. A sudden blur to his left. He turned, but the leader moved faster than sight. A massive form slammed into him, sending both crashing into the ice. His rifle skidded away. Kane hit the ground hard, air ripped from his lungs. The alien towered over him, armor gleaming faintly with the same shifting light as the crystals. It raised a blade, long and curved, humming with energy. Kane rolled aside, the blade slicing into the ice where his chest had been. Shards exploded into the air. He scrambled for his sidearm, firing 3 rounds into the creature's torso. The bullets sparked harmlessly off its armor. The alien laughed, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated in the ice. "You cannot win," it said. Kane's eyes flicked toward his rifle, lying a few meters away. The explosive round still chambered. He needed 1 clean shot. He baited the alien, staggering backward, letting exhaustion show. The creature advanced slowly, confident, savoring its advantage. He lunged sideways, sliding across the ice, fingers brushing the rifle's grip. The alien struck again, blade carving through air just above him. Kane rolled onto his stomach, swinging the rifle up in one motion. The leader turned, too late. Kane fired. The bullet struck center mass. The explosion shattered the air, sending shockwaves through the glacier. The alien's armor cracked, light bursting from within like molten glass. It fell to one knee, snarling, claws digging into the ice. Kane rose unsteadily, breath ragged, rifle trembling in his grip. The creature looked at him, eyes dimming but defiant. "You think you win," it rasped. "You are one. We are many." Kane didn't answer. He aimed again, his voice low. "Then send more." He pulled the trigger. The shot ended it. Silence fell again, broken only by the wind whispering through the ravine. Kane stood there for a long time, staring at the smoking corpse, the smell of burned ozone sharp in the air. He felt no triumph, only a weary stillness. He wiped frost from his visor, turning his gaze toward the horizon. The storm was beginning to clear, faint sunlight pushing through the clouds. For the first time, he could see beyond the valley. Then his visor flickered. A faint signal appeared, multiple blips, distant but moving toward his coordinates. Reinforcements, not human. He sighed, exhaustion settling over him like another layer of snow. The fight was not over. It never was. He adjusted the strap on his rifle, eyes narrowing as he looked into the white distance. Round 2, then, he muttered and disappeared back into the storm. The wind had shifted again, carrying with it the scent of scorched metal and ozone. Kane stood among the wreckage of the glacier, his rifle heavy in his hands, the heat from the last explosion already fading into the relentless cold. The leader's body had stopped steaming, fragments of armor frozen where they fell. For a long moment, he simply breathed, letting the silence settle like dust. But peace, he knew, was a lie whispered between battles. His visor still pulsed with motion, multiple signals closing fast. The reinforcements the dying alien had promised were real. He crouched and retrieved an intact shard of Zarkath armor, its surface slick and shifting like liquid glass. Beneath the alien sigils, faint energy still pulsed. He turned it over in his hand, recognizing its function, a locator beacon. That was how they had found him. He tossed it aside, crushing it beneath his boot. "Not again," he muttered. The storm had weakened, exposing the fractured horizon. The valley stretched beneath a bruised sky, pale light reflecting off the snow like silver fire. Somewhere beyond that ridge, the newcomers were closing in. Kane reloaded his rifle, fingers stiff with cold, but movements precise, automatic. His shoulder burned, ribs ached, yet his mind remained sharp. He had survived this long because of discipline, not luck. He scanned the terrain, calculating vantage points, lines of fire, escape routes. He would not win this fight through endurance. He would win it through strategy. The aliens believed humans were inferior, emotional, chaotic, primitive. Let them keep believing. That arrogance was always their weakness. He moved toward the upper ridge, leaving shallow prints that the wind erased behind him. Each step was careful, deliberate, guided by instinct rather than sight. He reached a plateau, overlooking the basin, and crouched low. The snow had softened into powder, glistening under the dim light. He adjusted his rifle scope, scanning the field. The first shapes emerged from the storm, tall, armored, gleaming faintly with bioluminescent veins. At least half a dozen, perhaps more. They moved cautiously, spreading across the valley like wolves testing unfamiliar ground. Kane placed a small control module beside him, linking it to the mines he had planted earlier. He had turned the glacier into a weapon, each ridge and crack mapped into his memory. If the Zarkath wanted to walk into hell, he would be their guide. He exhaled slowly, focusing his scope on the lead alien. This one was different, bulkier, armor laced with energy conduits, eyes burning faint gold instead of blue. A commander. He could almost sense its disdain through the glass. He waited until the formation reached the center of the basin, then flicked the detonator. The ground erupted in thunder. Shards of ice and snow launched skyward as the charges collapsed the ridge. 2 aliens vanished instantly, swallowed by falling debris. The rest scattered, roaring in their guttural tongue, firing blindly into the haze. Plasma bolts streaked through the air, lighting the storm in flashes of cobalt and white. Kane fired back once, twice, each shot precise, deliberate. 2 more fell. He shifted position before they could locate his angle, crawling along the ridge, body merging with the terrain. His breathing came fast now, the pain in his chest stabbing with every inhale. The aliens regrouped, forming a perimeter. One activated a scanning drone that swept the area with crimson light. Kane pressed deeper into the snow, heart thundering as the beam passed inches from him. The drone paused, hesitated, then moved on. He released a slow breath. He had seconds before they recalibrated. He aimed again, targeting the drone's carrier. A single shot dropped it, sparks scattering across the ice. The others reacted instantly, focusing their fire on his position. The ridge exploded behind him as plasma bolts tore through it. He rolled downhill, snow swallowing him whole, body tumbling until he struck solid ground. Pain flared, but he forced himself up, half-crouched, rifle ready. He was cornered now. No more ridges, no more escape. For a moment, the valley was chaos, smoke, snow, the hiss of melting ice. Then, from within the fog, a voice boomed, amplified through alien speakers. Human sniper, it said, words heavy and deliberate. You kill many. You defy the warlord's will. Surrender, and your death will be clean. Kane almost laughed, the sound dry in his throat. Clean's never been part of the job, he murmured. He steadied the rifle and waited for movement. The voice came again, closer this time. You are flesh. You bleed. You end. Maybe, Kane whispered, but so do you. He spotted a flicker of motion to his left, a shimmer in the mist, the telltale glitch of a half-cloaked form. He fired before it fully materialized. The shot struck home, and the alien fell, screaming as its armor imploded inward. The others hesitated, unnerved by the precision. Kane used the pause to crawl behind a fractured pillar of ice, checking his remaining ammunition. 2 rounds left. He ran a quick systems check. Visor cracked, sensors failing, comms dead. Perfect. Just him and them, the way he preferred it. He heard the crunch of heavy steps approaching. The commander had come personally, its form emerging through the fog, towering, deliberate. Its armor shimmered with faint gold currents, symbols glowing along its chest. Kane steadied himself, crouched behind the ice. His muscles trembled, not from fear but from exhaustion. The alien stopped a few meters away, scanning the ground. It knew he was close. You hide, it said, voice metallic. But your courage amuses me. You kill like a beast cornered, yet your kind will fall. You are the last echo of a dying world. Kane raised his rifle slowly, lining the shot with the faint reflection of the alien's armor. Funny, he said quietly. That echo keeps killing you. He pulled the trigger. The bullet tore through the alien's shoulder, spinning it sideways. The commander roared, firing a plasma blast that scorched the ice above him. Kane rolled, the heat grazing his leg, the air filled with burning ozone. He fired again, striking its chest plate, but the armor held. The alien charged. Kane dove aside, barely escaping the blow that shattered the ice where he'd been standing. They collided near the edge of the basin, grappling among broken shards. The alien's strength was monstrous, pressing him down, claws closing around his throat. Kane fought for air, hand fumbling at his belt until he found the last thermal grenade. He jammed it between them and triggered the switch. The explosion was muted but brutal, the heat wave melting snow into steam. The alien staggered back, armor sizzling. Kane rolled to his knees, coughing, vision blurred. He raised his rifle one last time. The commander lifted its weapon too, aiming directly at him. They fired simultaneously. The plasma bolt scorched past his shoulder, but his bullet found its mark. The round struck the alien's throat, piercing through. The creature convulsed, then fell, collapsing into the snow with a hiss of escaping gas. Kane stayed still, listening, waiting for another signal, another sound. There was nothing. The valley had gone quiet again, save for the slow crackle of melting ice. He lowered the rifle and let out a long breath. The cold bit deep, but it didn't matter. The fight was over. For now. He looked toward the horizon, where faint sunlight bled through thinning clouds. The storm was breaking. He could see blue sky for the first time in what felt like years. He reached up, removing his mask. The air burned his lungs, sharp and clean. He tasted iron and frost. He stood there for a long while, staring at the rising light. When his calm finally crackled back to life, the voice on the other end was thin with static. Sergeant Kane confirmed status. He hesitated before answering. Threat neutralized, he said quietly. Earth still stands. He looked once more at the battlefield, the smoking craters, the alien corpses half buried in snow, and then at the distant horizon beyond them. Send word to command, he added. They'll come again, and when they do, I'll be waiting. He slung his rifle across his back and began walking toward the light, footsteps vanishing behind him as the wind swept the snow clean. Above, the first rays of dawn spread across the ice, and for a moment, the world was still.